Hello, welcome back to another demo. Today we're going to be talking about self-service backup and restore. Today we have a PX Central and backup installation on our right and a Kubernetes cluster in which we'll be interacting with from various user perspectives. Now, when I talk about self-service, we really are mentioning the organizational aspects of a DevOps team, right? So a front-end team might be separate from a different team, and they might only have access to their namespace and their applications. So we're going to show you how to interact with PX Backup from the perspective of a single user or another user from a different team. The first thing we'll show you is interacting with the Kubernetes system on our left as the various users. So I have a Joe user here, and I'm using Joe context, which is its own kube config, and I'm going to get the pods for the front-end namespace. Joe is a front-end developer and has access to the front-end namespace. You can see there's Apache and Nginx deployments in this namespace. Jane is a middleware developer, and she is part of the middleware namespace. Notice she can't see the Apache and Nginx deployments and only sees her Hello World middleware application. Now, if I try to access the front end namespace as Jane, as part of the middleware team, I'm forbidden to do so, right? This is role-based access control with Kubernetes. And these are the concepts in which you will be able to see that we take into PX Backup. So if we log into PX Backup as an admin user, meaning I am a Kubernetes admin and I have access to a lot of things, I can take a look at various aspects of the system. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at our users. We mentioned Jane and Joe and myself, the admin. These are all part of different teams. There's a front-end group and a middleware group. Now, we mentioned that Jane belongs to middleware and Joe belongs to the front-end team. So this is an OIDC view of the users and typically connects back to like an LDAP or Active Directory system. Keycloak is what we're using today because it's built into PX Backup, but you can use other OIDC providers too. Now, if I access PX Central and Backup as an admin, I see a lot more information than I would as user, which you'll see. I see all about the Portworx deployment, the nodes and volume drives, Portworx version, etc. I can also go into the backup screen and select any namespace I want because as an admin, I have visibility across namespaces, meaning I'm a cluster admin. I have access to the cluster. So as you see, I have the front end and middleware namespaces selected here. Now, let's try and log in as one of our users. Let's make sure and log out as the admin, and we'll go back here and log in as Jane. Once we've logged in as Jane through our provider, we can see that we also have added the cluster ahead of time. Jane's been in here and added Kubernetes middleware as a cluster and probably configured some backup location for herself, right? This is self-service, so she has her own object storage endpoint. She has her own cluster that she's added, but really this is a view of the cluster that we all are using. Notice she only has access to the middleware namespace on the left in the CLI. So if we try to select the front-end namespace from our UI, we can't see anything, right? So our UI is saying, nothing's returning, you don't have access to this. So let's go ahead and select our middleware namespace. Now Jane can see our middleware application, the Hello World service. And from here on, she can do self-service backup and restore. So let's go ahead and create a backup. We're going to name it Jane's Backup 1 and use the pre-configured Jane middleware backups location. This can be provided for her or configured by her. It doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and create that backup. Now Jane's taking a backup of her middleware applications and it's in progress. And once it's completed, we'll also see it reflected in this view from the perspective of the middleware developers. Now you can see that it's succeeded. So now we can go ahead and restore it if we want to. As a middleware dev, I have the option to restore things back to the namespace I have access to. So let's go ahead and name this restore. and target the application destination cluster, which is the same cluster, Kubernetes middleware, and we'll go ahead and restore this application. Great, it's already done, right? This is all stateless things, so it'll restore pretty quickly. Now, if we look at a backup view, we can see both the backup and restore from the middleware developer named Jane. And notice it is saying that it all happened in the namespace and how many resources are there. So now let's log in as Joe, who is a front-end developer. Once we log in as Joe, we can see a very similar view, but Joe has added his cluster and named it Kubernetes front end. We can go to the backups tab and we see no data, right? This is important because Joe is a front end developer. Just like Joe can't see the namespace and the pods running from the CLI, he also can't see backup and restore from other namespaces. This is the same aspect that Kubernetes uses and Portworx brings into PX backup. So as a front-end developer, I can go ahead and select my front-end namespace, see all my applications, and I can back up my front-end applications. So we'll name this one Joe's Backup 1 and select Joe's backup location. Separate from Jane, I can't even see Jane's as the user Joe. We can also add some labels because Joe thinks this is important and wants to add labels for other tracking that they're doing as part of his team. Just like we saw with Jane, Joe can view this screen and dig into details about his backup, whether it's in progress or pending. And when it's complete, it will show up here as green as well. You can see now it's completed. So Joe can also restore. He can't restore to a different namespace. He can only restore to the one he has access to. And he can restore to the clusters he has access to. So in this case, it's the same Kubernetes front end access. And we'll go ahead and kick off that restore. So both Jane and Joe, as part of the front end and the middleware teams, have their own view into the Kubernetes cluster, and they also have their own view into their protection of the applications within the namespace. So I hope this has been helpful in showing you how self-service backup and restore can be used across your Kubernetes cluster teams and organizations. Until next time, take care.